Hello everybody and welcome to my very first ScrawlrBox unboxing and challenge video. I apologize ahead of time if you can hear my daughter crying in the background. I put her down for a nap and she's not going for a nap. So first off we have the print. These adorable little creatures were drawn by Annika Landberg, and I'll bring it down to the bottom there. You can see all of her social media, including her YouTube channel. I will definitely be checking her out, and you can too. So they included 3 sheets of this really thin bleed-proof marker paper, and I wasn't super excited to see that because I have bleed-proof marker paper and it's not my favorite, but obviously we'll be using it because that's part of the challenge. So first I saw that Micron there, and I saw the teal kind of writing on it, and I was thinking, ooh, colored Micron. But it's not. The Micron PN has a different nib than the needlepoint fine liners that we're used to. And it's interesting. It reminds me of a fancy pen my mom used to have. I believe it was made by Pilot. So looking forward to getting to know this pen. And next I see a Sakura jelly roll, which, you know, at first I was kind of disappointed because I already have these and they're not my favorite. I prefer the Uniball Signo. But then I realized that it's a 10 and I have the 08 and this is the new and improved one. So yeah, then I got excited. And last but not least, we have the Spectra Ad markers. Now these are the alcohol markers that go along with, well, the same company as the Chartpak markers. You may have heard of them. They're a really beautiful blendable marker that is something else, not alcohol. These are a brush tip marker, which is great, and I looked them up after. They're comparable in price to the Winsor & Newton, so if you can find them. They're not sold in many places in Canada, but they're probably more prevalent in the States, and I know they're on Dick Blick. So yeah, nice little markers. And it is swatch time. Oh, well, not quite. Here's the little menu. As I said, Spectra Ad markers, Sigma, Micron, PN, Jelly Roll, 10 bold, and bleed-proof marker paper. Woodland creatures is the prompt. Here we go, swatch time. I'm using my own marker paper just in case one of my sketches doesn't work out. I don't want to waste the paper that came in the box just yet. Starting out with that PN Micron. Just testing it out and finding that you can actually get a good amount of line variation, line width variation, which is cool. It's kind of like a stiff brush. Just doing a little scribbling. Yeah, it's interesting. I'm glad to have this in my collection. Here's that new bold jelly roll, and yep, goes over the marker or the fine liner just fine. It's a white gel pen. Now I decided I wanted to compare this new, improved, and bolder jelly roll to the old style 08s that I already have, so I pulled a random black marker out of my collection. So don't have to be confused here, this double line did not come in the box. Just making a bigger black patch to test the jelly rolls. First up, the old style jelly roll in 08. You may now be able to hear one of my cats purring. Hello, Camo. And the new and improved jelly roll in size 10. That is definitely much nicer, much more comparable to the Uniball Signo that I like so much. And swatch time. Here we have soft coral. Very nice, very coral. terracotta. Now, out of the 4 colors, this one just doesn't match the cap as much, the terracotta one. The Cherimoya green. At first I actually thought this marker was going dry, and then I realized that it is just this muted, and it's a very nice pale green. And chartreuse. Very neon color, somewhere between lime and snot, but not unpleasantly so. In time for a little blend test. Now, the reason I don't like this type of bleed-proof marker paper, besides the fact that it's so thin and easy to put a crease in accidentally, is because the ink sits on top for so long that when you do a blend like this, or even work with the blender, you don't see it right away. So I'm going to zoom in here to show you the blend, and it doesn't really look like it's blended. But then I'm going to go work on another little swatch and come back to it, and you'll see that it has blended much better after a couple minutes here. So now I'm laying down the soft coral so that I can play with the colorless blender. Most alcohol markers, these blenders, they don't blend as you might think if you're not familiar with alcohol markers. They dilute and lift the color, and sure enough, that's what this one is doing. It actually picked up enough of the color that I was, as you can see, able to put down a pale layer beside it there. And as you can see, the circle I drew on the coral swatch is lightning, so it does, like I said, do exactly what I thought it was. And you can see with the green blend there, it is a nicer blend now that it has sat there for a minute or two. And last but not least on this swatching journey, I wanted to see how this blends with other brands of markers. So I'm pulling out a Winsor Newton brush marker. Some of my cheaper markers either only blend with each other or only blend with other ones, like that double line I used with the black. It only blends with others. The double lines don't blend with each other, which was super disappointing when I got them because they were my first brush type. And just for those of you who care, the caps don't stay on the ends. Very nice barrel shape, caps don't stay on the ends. I don't care, but I know a lot of you do. Now, I did record a swatch test, basically the same thing, on cardstock, which is what I prefer for markers, but then this video ended up being so long I decided to jump straight into this. In previous videos that I've uploaded, I did not record the pencil sketching process. I went straight into inking the line art, and I decided this one I'm going to show you the sketching and not much of the inking. So this little bit of inking is all you're going to see. I'm going to go in and do the rest of the sketching after this preliminary inking, and then we'll jump straight to coloring. You won't see that process. Just making it faster. I don't think that this sketching part is the most interesting part of these videos. I picked up the clipboard there, brought it closer because I noticed when I was making that large solid black in the ear that the paper was starting to be eaten up a bit, kind of like if I had put down way too much of, say, a Crayola marker. And I've never experienced that with a Micron before or any other pigment liner before, so I'm not sure if it's this different nib type or if it's this paper or maybe a combination of the two coming together in the wrong way. You can also see here I made one of the whiskers too long, and I freaked out, and I went over with that the jelly roll, kind of like a whiteout. I really regret doing that. The alcohol markers do not lay over it quite the same as they do over paper. So if I scan this and upload this later to put in my Redbubble shop or anything, I'm going to have to do a little Photoshop editing to get rid of that line. I could have worked with that line, incorporated it, but I didn't. Lessons learned. So since the theme is woodland creatures, I went with the outline and very basic details of a fox head. And then instead of just coloring a fox, I'm filling it with pictures of woodland creatures and animal tracks, and filling those spaces with some foliage. In here, like I said, we've jumped past the rest of the inking because I don't want this to be too long. It's going to be a long coloring section anyway. So after doing another little swatch just for reference on this fresh scratch pad, I decided to start with the eyes. I really want those eyes to stand out when it's done, so I started with a pale diluted chartreuse just to remind myself that those eyes need to stand out and to be careful with what I'm coloring around it. And after that I decided to go in and color all the foliage first, because again, have to be careful with what I color around those. I don't want anything to get all muddled up and blended in with the things around it. Fun fact, this is the first time I'm doing a limited palette challenge of any type, and I really enjoyed it. I think this one will be very high on the list for boxes to redo as a no-box art box challenge, because I'd really like to see how this works with other marker brands, and maybe with another limited set of 4 colors. And more noise in the background. Now one of my cats is trying to open a cupboard. Oh goodness. Just about done with the foliage there. Bringing in the terracotta to make that patriotic little maple leaf there stand out. Proud Canadian. Before anybody comments, this is not meant to be a robin. Even though it has the red breast, I just thought he deserved to be more than one color. Coloring the second squirrel in opposite pink tones than the other one. The other one is mostly terracotta with soft coral details, and this one is the reverse. Now what I'm doing here is the top swatch on the second column there. I really like how that color turned out after it settled in, but I forgot which 2 colors I used to combine it, so I was testing there. And I figured it out, it's the chartreuse and the terracotta, with a little bit of colorless blender over top. For some reason I decided that since raccoons are gray and nothing in here indicates gray, I would do a very diluted pink, which it does work, it does look cute, but then with everything else around it, it ended up not looking very colored, so if I were to do this again, I would probably try to mix in some of the green and go for a very faded brown color instead. I just wanted to comment, because I don't think I commented when I was talking about the sketching. I know a lot of young and new artists watch these speed paint videos, and you think, why can't I draw that fast? Why does this look so good in such a short time? It doesn't. The sketching part you saw, which is less than 5 minutes, that's cut and condensed and sped up so much. It was actually an hour's worth of footage just for that pencil sketching bit, and I paused the recording in between every single little critter I put in there because I was thinking, what should I draw next? Oh, what does that actually look like at that angle? Let me look up a reference photo. So yeah, it took over an hour just to do the sketch on this piece. So don't worry when you can't do it in 5 minutes. I can't do it either. Nobody can. Now this little creature I'm coloring in here, he's definitely my least favorite part of the whole piece. I admit, it was meant to be a wolf, but I put the eyes way too close together, and now it looks like an awkward angle on a bear. So let's just pretend that's what it is. This bear turned out much more cute, because he's actually supposed to be a bear. I missed coloring part of him at this point, though. I go back and fix it when I get to the background colors. Luckily I remembered which colors I used in which order. This one is also meant to be a bear, just in case you were wondering. He does look like a bear. I think he's the best one. Now this little bird, it was going to be a cardinal, and then I put way too large of a mask on it, so he's more like a stellar jay, but then I went with a red shade anyway. Color theory, adding a little bit of green to a red makes it a darker red, so even though these aren't reds, they are pinky oranges, the same principle still stands. I was able to make a much darker color by adding in a little bit of green without actually making it look green. And now my cat's chewing on the cord to my microphone. Thank you. Go away. I went back over the tracks so many times trying to make them a lot darker and bolder than the animals around them. And man, did it take a lot of layers on this paper to get a darker shade. I'm glad I did it though, it turned out really well. Background time, trying to put contrasting colors around objects. You may have noticed I'm doing a lot of dabbing with the coral and the terracotta. The marker cap on the terracotta looks like such a dusty, unsaturated color, and it's actually the bolder, darker of the two. So I seriously kept grabbing the soft coral when I actually wanted the terracotta, and grabbing the terracotta when I actually wanted the soft coral. So yeah, that's one of my complaints about these markers, that the caps aren't all completely accurate. Like the soft coral is actually a great match, and so is the chartreuse. But the cap on the terracotta makes it look like it should be paler. The cap on the cherimoya green makes it look like it should be darker. And my other complaint is that the gray line that you could see on the barrel at one end, that's on the chisel nib. Nobody uses the chisel nib, right? The most alcohol markers, the indicated end is the brush tip or the fine tip if it's a fine tip type. And so I was constantly pulling off the wrong cap. And I've at this point already watched 2 other YouTube artists do this one. I finished filming this before I saw them, but then I took so long to get my voiceover recorded, and they were also having the same issue, pulling off the wrong cap because of that indication line. So yeah, Chartpak company, if you want to change up the design on your markers at some point, something to consider. Put the indicator on the brush nib. like I said though, I do really like these markers, and they do seem to be comparable in price to the Winsor Newton brush markers. So if you find them available in your area, or if you want to order them off someplace like DicBlick, they are definitely worth it. I was disappointed when I went, again, Chartpak company, notes here. I was disappointed when I went to their website and went to the page about these Spectra markers, and then I went to their retailers section expecting to find retailers in Canada that sell these Spectra markers, but then I went to these pages and they were just companies that stocked the Chartpak markers, or something else entirely by that company, and I could not find a Canadian art retailer listed on their retailers page that actually does sell the Spectra Ad markers. At least one of the ones I checked doesn't have a product listing online. They're an in-store only type deal, so I don't know. But the ones that do, especially Curry's, no go. They don't have them. In fact, Curry's only has the blender for the Chartpak marker, so come on, Curry's, what's the point there? And so I made the overall outline on this fox boulder, and then I used the jelly roll to put the little highlights in the eyes and on the noses. And there we go. There's our finished product. How do you like it? Well, I will leave all of my social media links down below. Go ahead and give me a follow if you liked this. Check out the couple of videos I put up before, and I will see you in the next one. Bye!